Hello and thank you for joining today's event. Introducing SICSS-Howard Mathematica event sponsor Calvin Hadley. Now I would like to introduce Nanette Coleman. Nanette H. Coleman is a PhD candidate in the Sociology Department at the University of California, Berkeley and UC National Lab Los Alamos Fellow. Her work sits at the intersection of the sociology of culture and organizations and focuses on cybersecurity, surveillance, and privacy in the U.S. context. Specifically, Nanette's research examines how organizations assess risk, make decisions, and respond to data breaches and organizational compliance with state, federal, and international privacy laws. Nanette holds a Master of Public Administration with a specialization in democracy, politics, and institutions from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, and both an MA in Economics and a BA in Communication from the University at Buffalo SUNY. A non-traditional student, Nanette's prior professional experience includes local, state, and federal service, as well as work for 2 international organizations and 2 universities. Nanette is also the lead organizer for SICSS-Howard Mathematica.
Thank you all for joining us for this discussion with Calvin Hadley. I'll begin by introducing Calvin. After that, we'll discuss his professional and academic trajectory to date. From there, we'll spend some time learning about his work in the president's office at Howard University and a bit about what it's like to be a doctoral student at Howard University in the sociology department. Finally, we'll conclude by discussing his path to the professoriate. If you've seen our other discussions on this channel, including SICSS at Age 5, Past, Present, and Future, and Bit by Bit with Matt Telgonic, you know that I'm particularly interested in elevating discussions on the topic of diversity in computational social science. Today's discussion will reflect that as well. Let's begin with Calvin's bio. Calvin J. Hadley serves as the Senior Advisor for Strategic Initiatives in the Office of the President at Howard University. As Senior Advisor for Strategic Initiatives on the President's Senior Leadership Team, Hadley works to broker strategic partnerships that advance the university's mission, truth, and service. Since joining Howard in 2014, he's negotiated numerous partnerships and launched several student programs. The most notable of these include Howard's partnership with Google and Amazon Studios to create the Howard West Campus in Silicon Valley and the Howard Entertainment Campus in Hollywood. Partnerships with the District of Columbia Public Schools also led to the creation of a dual enrollment program that allows high school juniors and seniors to earn college credit at Howard University, and a lecture series with Congressman Elijah Cummings, former Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations James Comey, former Mayor of Washington, D.C. Vincent Gray, and others. Welcome, Calvin. It's a pleasure to have you with us today and an honor to have you representing one of our 2 founding organizations that are sponsoring SICSS-Howard Mathematica.
Thank you, Nanette. And it's a pleasure connecting with you as a team member and as somebody helping us get this off the ground.
Let's jump into a discussion about your professional trajectory, including your current work at Howard and your studies. So this part of the discussion is meant to help our listeners to get a sense of what you do and how you got here.
Sure.
So can we start with, what do you do at Howard and what was your path to your current work?
Yeah, well, good question, and a unique question for me. I always have to take a step back and say I'm a proud Howard alum. And so our president is a 3-time Howard alum. I'm chasing him. I have quite a while to go. I'm working on my 2nd degree at Howard, but I'm a proud graduate of the undergraduate program at Howard University. I have an undergraduate degree in political science with a minor in Africana studies. I currently have the opportunity, as you said earlier, to serve as a senior advisor to President Frederick, our phenomenal president, in my portfolio with strategic initiatives. And it's a unique position. And every time I describe it, I use a little bit of a sports analogy that now that I'm saying this publicly, I don't know if it's as good as it is in my head, but I'll use it anyways. So I think of my position on President Frederick's team as a bit of the free safety, if you know anything about football. And so in football, the free safety is the defender that has to play a little bit of every position depending on the needs for that play. And so really, I think as a senior advisor for strategic initiatives, I get a chance to really carry forward President Frederick's strategic visions and really broker a number of strategic partnerships to advance the university. And so that's looked like everything from, as you said earlier, working to create, right, the unique process of creating an industry partnership, workforce development industry partnerships with major organizations like Google and Amazon Studios, and really working from the beginning stages. President Frederick handed me a one-pager to really bring in those phenomenal programs to fruition. I also have the opportunity to work directly with students. President Frederick allowed me to really build out our Black Male Initiative at Howard University. And so something that, as we'll talk about a little bit later, is a personal passion of mine as I study in my doctoral program at Howard University in sociology. I also get a chance to touch professionally. And a part of what I really get a chance to do as I led with my proud status of a Howard alum working on my second degree is that I really get a chance to sit back and think about ways to advance experiences, opportunities, tools, and resources for our students, right? In this really unique capacity. And so I'm elated to be back at the home team. It's one of those positions where, you know, it's a bit cliche to say that it doesn't feel like work, but I do mean sincerely. I think the president shares this sentiment as well. Howard made me, right? I am Howard made. I'm Harold and Ernestine Hadley primarily made my parents, but Howard University took the torch and created the monster that you have in front of you today. And so with that, I have so much pride and so much of a privilege to be able to serve the institution that created me, or that helped create me, and that continues to impact so many people today.
So you said you have 2 degrees and Dr. Frederick has 3. Does that mean we can expect you'll head to medical school after this?
I will not. I will absolutely not head to medical school. There are a number of things that Dr. Frederick will do that I will never attempt to follow.
No, doctor.
No, doctor. But I will say, you know, Howard, the unique thing about Howard University is that so many of the people that come to Howard come with this idea of changing the world, right? And to so many people in so many settings, that is cookie cutter, that's cliche. It doesn't even feel good to say, but to the Howard Bison and so much of this place that President Frederick gets a chance to influence, it is the world that we live in consistently, right? And so I will not pursue a medical degree, but I do think that with the doctorate degree that I am pursuing and the experiences that I'm getting now, who knows, right? I like to think that I'm very far along in my career, but who knows what the future Calvin Hadley becomes because of these experiences.
So you mentioned that you studied political science. Can you tell us a little bit about your path to Howard?
Sure. Wow. Now that's a heavy question.
Yes.
That is a heavy question. I'm originally from the Los Angeles area, Carson, California, in Los Angeles County. Grew up in the 1990s. And any story that I get has to start with my parents, right? And so I come from 2 proud, phenomenal parents. I'll probably get a little emotional as I talk about them, so forgive me. They're both still alive, doing well. But people that have really just poured so much into me. And as I examine my position today, it's really an examination of 2 parents who decided to sacrifice from a very early age to provide me with the path to understand that the world was my oyster, and then to really provide me after that path with the tools, experiences, and resources to solidify that. And so when you think about the path to Howard University, my father, proud man, did not have a lot of formal education. Dropped out of school in the 9th grade, grew up in abject poverty in the South in College Station, Arkansas. And as a result of that, Maslow's hierarchy of needs denotes that you figure out how to survive in this place. And so he did not get a chance to pursue a lot of formal education. But as soon as I was born, he was very clear that education would be my passport to the future. And my mother, who did get a chance to go to college and actually pursued a bit of a master's degree, a unique story behind that, that I don't know that we have a ton of time. Well, I guess for 30 seconds, my high school was on a college campus, and my mother actually took classes toward her master's degree in the same building that I was taking high school classes. And so I was pursuing a high school degree in the same building that she was pursuing a master's degree. So she does have formal education, but with that, both of my parents knew that education would be my passport to the future. And as a result of that, as a young person, I was aligned with a number of academic and educational programs, right? I started to go to Saturday school at College Bound starting in the 7th grade, and really continued to go to Saturday school throughout my young life, academic enrichment programs in the summer. And so I remember coming home in the 7th grade. I'll tell this story and then I'll put the mic down. But my dad, I was a basketball player at our local park, and I came home to my dad, and I was so elated. Dad, I'm going to go to the league. I'm going to go to the league. And he may be a little embarrassed as I tell this story publicly. But Dad, I'm going to go to the league. I'm going to go to the league. And my dad looked at me and said, son, I don't know if you'll ever go to the NBA, right? That's a unique thing to tell a seventh grader. But he looked me in my eyes.
Real talk.
With all seriousness, he said, son, I don't know if you ever go to the NBA. He said, but if you get a law degree from Harvard, you'll be able to own the team. Now, to be clear, right, again, my dad didn't have a lot of formal education, and there may have been a little bit of gap to some of the truth. But what my dad was saying is pursue education and allow it to be your passport to open up things that you don't even have the capacity to understand at this stage. And so follow that and allow that to be your passport. And man, it has been my passport to Howard University and beyond. So that's a long-winded way of saying that I was guided to this place by such a strong foundation laid by my parents. And then Howard University took the baton and ran it unlike any other leg, I guess you can imagine.
I have to ask, everything that you're describing, it's how I experience you. How do you see your parents and the work that you do at Howard and the trajectory that you've taken?
Man, you can really get some emotion out of me. Goodness gracious. Wow. Wow, that's a heavy one. So, man, it's probably gonna take a few seconds for this one. Wow.
And they must be so incredibly proud of you. I mean,
I bet you didn't know you were getting all this emotion out of this interview. Wow, that's heavy. Okay, all right. Well, we're gonna just dive into it. So, when you think about my childhood, going back to that same question you asked before, how did I get to Howard? Very privileged, right? Not a lot of money. Didn't come from very much financial privilege at all, but just a lot of love, a really ton of love. And so I remember looking up in the seventh grade, I had a group of friends, male friends, and we were just kind of talking. And I looked up, and of those 7 friends, only 2 of us had our fathers in our lives. And that was it was kind of one of those weird things, right? We all understood the importance of a male role and the father role, and especially, so many people saw my father as the father figure in the neighborhood, but it didn't register to me that so many people did not have that in their lives. They didn't have the same father figure. And as I analyze my path to today, so much of my ability to understand and conceptualize success and then move toward it was my ability to understand myself outside of the white supremacist structure that would define me for me, right? And so as a Black male, there are a lot of signals telling you who you are, right? And who you are not in society and culture and music, on television. And without a really strong foundation to maneuver through that appropriately, you're going to get swallowed up. And so I get so emotional in talking about that because my parents did everything. I talk about my father as a Black male often, but my mother as well did everything they could to ensure that, as they say, they remove the barriers, right? And so you're gonna have a number of barriers in your path. What does it look like for somebody to help you remove those barriers for success and put you on a path that's much more straight, that's much more smooth? And that's what my parents did for me. But I realized that so many of my peers didn't have that opportunity. And so I dedicated my life, or I'm still dedicating my life, to really ensuring that marginalized and oppressed people have the opportunity to define themselves outside of the structure that seeks to define them for themselves. And so that is the work. That is the work that I do in my job. That is the work that I get a chance to do in my academic pursuits. That is the work that I'll do if I don't get a chance to have a job anymore. That's the work that I'll continue to do. It's the real passion that I have. And I realize, because of my upbringing, because of my parents, and I didn't speak much about my siblings. I am my mother's only child. So my father has a number of children. I have a number of half siblings. And so my father, who turns 80 this year, right? My dad turns 80 this year. And I guess for that, I have to tell my age in order to show the juxtaposition. I turned 35 this year. And so there's a significant gap between my father's age and my age. The reason I bring it up is because I have a number of older siblings. So my father had his first kid when he was 16. As a result of that, my dad lived a very different life before I was born. And so all of my other siblings had a very different father. As a result of that, they had very different options, and they had very different life outcomes. And so when I was born, my dad, had this epiphany, said the creator gave him another chance. And all that I know is the best father to ever exist, right? I have the Cosby, the Huxtable father. And that's had a significant impact on who I am today, and has a significant impact on who I am today. The way I view myself, the confidence I have, the ability that I have to go into a room with locks and a beard and to be able to hold my chest up and to hold my head high. And so my goal, the work that I do today at Howard, the work that I will continue to do in my academic pursuits, is really community work, right? I see myself as a servant. I see myself as a community servant. And so I'm privileged enough to come to Howard to be able to serve my people and to be able to continue my academic pursuits, to do that at a higher level. Sorry about the emotion.
Never apologize for emotion. And I mean, you have, it sounds like you have been like the fertilizer for your parents' dreams, and just the way with which you think about your trajectory, and also what you owe to this world is very inspiring. And I'm tearing up hearing you talk about it. I You mentioned your studies, and I feel so honored that you and I share an academic field, that we're both sociologists, both PhD students, and that the future of PhD students in sociology look like you, look like me, look like us. Can you talk to me a little bit about where you are in your program, your trajectory, and a little bit about your research interests? And I know that connects quite a bit to the passions you've already described, but can you take us through what that's like for people that understand what doctoral study is, and those who may be learning about it from you? What has it been like, and where are you going?
Yeah, exciting stuff. Yeah, very exciting. And so I am currently pursuing a doctorate in sociology. Really privileged to be doing that at E. Franklin Fraser's sociology department at Howard University, a storied department at a storied institution with storied faculty. And so that's first. I am at the scary part of the journey. Probably all the parts of the journey are
All
scary.
scary.
But I've completed my coursework. I've completed my 2 major exams at Howard you have to take. And I know there's some variance in this around the country, but at Howard you take a qualifying exam and a comprehensive exam. The qualifying exam really examines your core courses, if you will. It's probably the best translation to the undergraduate model, and the comprehensive exam really dives into your concentration. And so my 2 concentrations at Howard University in the sociology department are race, class, and gender. I'm sorry, social inequality, race, class, and gender, and in criminology. And so where am I in the pursuit? So again, finished both of those things, and now really, my advisor broke this down in a unique way. She said, when you're pursuing a doctorate degree and you're completing this, you're really creating a fact, right? You are contributing to theory. And so I'm now in this space where I am identifying my study, which is a daunting task, right? Which is a little bit scary, and really better understanding how I'm going to measure first of all, what I'm going to measure and how I'm going to measure what I'm going to measure and how I'm going to measure ultimately create my study. So I'm at the portion of the project where I'm creating my study. I'm working with a direct advisor to help me create a committee. And my next stage is creating a prospectus. And so we are literally, if I zoomed out and showed you the books around me, this is my work desk. It also has a ton of my academic books around there. So probably about 15 books around me as I'm diving deep, right? Every day after I finish my professional work, I'm diving into my academic work. I also have 2 young kids, right? And so I'm a father, the thread that kind of draws me through all of that. And so I'm studying all of this, but I think you really touched on something earlier. I have a privilege, and that is the privilege to really pursue my passion, whether it's in my profession, academic, my home. All of this stuff is tied together, which is why I get so emotional when talking about this stuff. This is who I am. This is what I want to be. This is how I want to show up. This is who I want to be for the world. And so you saw the emotion as I talked about my role at Howard. And so now I get a chance to really dive deep into, first of all, better understanding myself, right? How cool is it to be able to take a step back and to say, the first goal of my academic pursuits is not a degree, and I'll say this with great humility, but I'm not pursuing the degree for a job or a position, right? I think I have so much privilege to be in the position that I'm right now, and so much of the resume and the experience that I've had right now, I think will help reflect the work that I can do at this level. The doctorate, however, is so much of the pursuit of the doctorate is for knowledge itself. And so when you think about my goal of studying, I'll spend 30 seconds because all of this could be really long, but I have 30 seconds about why I decided to pursue this, and then a little bit about what I'm pursuing, or at least what I think I'm pursuing, right? And so
Yes.
when I graduated from Howard, I guess while at Howard, I traveled the world. I got a chance, a young person that didn't have a passport when coming into Howard University, left this place having lived in 3 countries and traveled to 12. So I had this really global experience in undergrad that changed my life. Those 3 countries that I lived in were in Africa. And so I decided to continue traveling afterwards. And so I went to teach and live in Senegal. And for me, as I'm a Pan-African person of African descent, I was so excited to go to Senegal. My wife will, I think I've told her this story, but I was so excited to go. The Senegalese women were some of the most beautiful women on the planet for me, right? At least in my mind, I was thinking, man, I'm going to be around some of these beautiful women. And I tell that story joking. I'm happily married, have been happily married for a long time, but I tell that story joking because something really unique happened to me in that process. And so in Senegal, as well as in a number of other places throughout the diaspora, there's a really unique practice called skin bleaching. And so while I was going to Senegal thinking, man, these women have the most beautiful skin on the planet, man, they're so beautiful. This practice of skin bleaching, it complicates that understanding a bit, right? And so here it is, this Pan-African that comes over there, and I'm able to say, wow, I think you guys are beautiful, but this practice flipped that on his head. And so what that did as a person of African descent, it didn't make me point at the Senegalese and say, oh my God, look at you Senegalese. It made me want to better understand the systems of influence, oppression, and marginalization that have impacted me. How are my people at home experiencing these same things that I can see just as clearly as day when I travel over here, but I probably can't see as clearly when it comes to my own coach, when it comes to the things that are normative to me. And so it really just kind of threw me into this whole whirlwind, right? I was over in Senegal just going through a whirlwind, but one of the things I got a chance to do was create a course for my high school seniors called Race, Class, and Gender, and where we got a chance to unpack some of that stuff. And that was my real entree to exploration of this space at a doctoral level. I took that class. I took the learnings from that class. I took the exploration from that class. I put in an application to a doctoral program at Howard, and they said, come. And I went in with the goal of better understanding the impact of colonization and enslavement on the contemporary African mind, and better understanding how Africans are socialized based on those 2 systems. As you know, you get into the coursework, right? And you're pulled to the left, you're pulled to the right, you learn more. And my ideas have evolved, my information has evolved. And so now I've created the courses, I've taken the exams, and I'm now currently at the stage, or at least my conversation with my advisor yesterday would guide me. I think I'll have another one tomorrow, and we'll continue to shape this thing up. But I'm really interested now in better understanding the role. As I talk about myself and coming to Howard and some of the things that I experience, some of the things that my peers experience. Well, I also talk to you about this confidence and these things that Ernestine and Harold then gave to Howard University that carry me forward. I'm really interested in understanding how people of African descent maneuver the world. I'm really interested in understanding how white supremacy impacts how people of African descent move through the world today, right? And so you heard the beginning of that idea as I talked about skin bleaching. I'm now very interested in really putting a focus on Black men and really understanding how white supremacy impacts what I'm, at least at this stage of the program, calling the nigga making process. And it's a bit jarring, but I'm really interested in better understanding this process of dehumanization, right? This quote in my mind: Africa made kings, America made niggas, right? And so what does that process look like, right? The nigga making process. And then what does it look like to undo that? Still very rough. I still have a lot of work to do to better define that. But that's where my passions lie at the moment, and really synthesizing the work that I've done thus far in my program. But I think I'll be honest and transparent to the folks that are new to the doctoral process, that I still have a lot of shaping and molding to do. And I'm working with a really capable group of advisors and faculty members to help me now better understand this, because I think the ultimate goal is to create a phenomenal study, to get really phenomenal data, as we'll talk about computational social sciences, and then really, right, contribute to the field, right, add a contributing theory to the world that already exists. And so I'm still there. It feels like I've gone a long way, but I have a long way to go. But I'm really excited to be on this really unique journey.
I recently was in conversation with Matt Salganic about his book Bit by Bit, and he mentioned how a chance trip as a graduate student studying abroad to visit his brother changed his trajectory, and how when you look back at sometimes at the time it doesn't seem like it's all fitting together, but all the various things that you're describing from your current professional work to the way that you were raised and what led you to apply, it sounds like are fitting together to create what will be a dissertation that all of us will hopefully read. I'm excited to watch your studies unfold and your work in our joint field unfold.
Yeah.
I think about my own experience, and it's anxiety inducing to put so much of your time and your effort and your energy into this thing that you're only understanding as you're building the bridge
Yes.
as you walk across it.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I identify so deeply with this idea of learning so much about yourself. I mean, we both went as older people to PhD programs, and I don't know about
Yeah.
you, but I was like, I know myself, I'm good. But I have been broken down and rebuilt daily
Yeah.
through this
Yeah.
experience, and will be stronger because of it. And I'm so
Absolutely.
excited to see how your work and your scholarship and your career continues to unfold.
Yeah.
So can you
Well, I'll tell
talk a
you.
little bit? Oh, you've got more? Go ahead.
No. I was just going to tell you how much I appreciate you. You know, I don't think in these dynamics you get a chance to really understand our working dynamic, but you've helped me, I think, in this professional space as we built this, but really right in the academic space as I identify. I think you're a little bit further along in the process. And as you know, there can be a bit of an imposter syndrome, right? As you hear about all the confidence, the other side of that coin is the imposter syndrome. And so it's so exciting and real to speak with you about some of the challenges. And it's really important to have that type of network as you're going through something like this.
Because in a down moment, if you can just say, I know Calvin would keep going.
Absolutely.
Calvin's somewhere studying. He
Yeah,
passed his quals. It just makes you feel like you can do it. And
absolutely.
especially if you don't see a lot of other Black faces.
Yeah,
I think these interactions are so important, and I appreciate you so much.
you too. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about how you found your way to being at Howard, one of the founding institutions of this computational social science program at Howard in sponsorship with Mathematica.
Yeah.
How this came together and what excites you most about computational social science and Howard?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, first of all, this is everything happens on time, right? And so I don't know how much we'll get a chance to go into in the video, but we were supposed to do this last summer, and then COVID-19 had different plans. And so I am so elated because now it's even better time. I think the university is even more excited about it. And so I just take a step back and say, more than a year ago, right? Probably more
Yeah.
than a year and a half ago. Akira Bell, who is at Mathematica, my counterpart, our counterpart in this partnership, came to Howard University, and I should give her the credit for coming to us, right, and said, listen, SICSS, Summer Institute for Computational Social Sciences, is happening out there. We would love to partner with you guys. Are you open to this? And let's have a conversation. And the president, I think, immediately put me on this project, and it was a match made in heaven, right? And to be clear, the requirement wasn't that you need to be a sociologist or a budding sociologist with a background in computational social sciences. It was just, hey, Hadley, you're the person on the team that is supposed to work on this stuff. Go and do this. And
Congrats.
it just so happened, right? And it just so happened to be this match made in heaven, where now I get a chance to learn so much about the computational social science space and in that world. But Akira came to us. We decided to partner on this. I think we are mission aligned with Mathematica in that we want to bring more people of color, more Black people to this space. I think that's really exciting about this moment because as you think about the future, right? When I mentioned this concept to our president, I'm on the president's team, so I'm one of the people that's with him in most of his speeches. I can regurgitate most of his speeches and fill in a lot of blanks. That was at least prior to COVID-19, right? I don't get a chance to do that as much anymore. But before that, he would have this speech about understanding the future, right? Understanding how we can work today, right, to better prepare for the future tomorrow. And he always talked about artificial intelligence. And he talked about using artificial intelligence in these unique ways. And he's as a person who's studying sociology from a criminological lens, when he talks about artificial intelligence in the judicial system, it's very scary, right? That's a very, very scary concept to a person who understands how our society was set up with a number of biases. And so our president has explored that topic on a number of occasions. We now have a faculty member who was recently provided with a Mellon grant to really dive into bias in AI. And she's really standing on the top of a table with the bullhorn saying, hey, not only does the university need to move in this direction, but we need to lead. We need to lead in the country in understanding how bias in AI currently is constructed and how we may maneuver through that appropriately in the future. When you think about bias in AI, right, the nucleus of that, I think, is this computational social science world space that we're in right now. And so I'm really interested in better understanding, and I think the university and the community is really interested in better understanding how we get in front of this. I think we all are very clear. It's so funny, as I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old now, and I think about myself as a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and the world has changed so much, right? So much, so much from those ancient days. Well, the world is changing again, right? The world is constantly changing. The world is constantly evolving. And we're on the front end of AI. We're on the front end of artificial intelligence. And so what does it look like to better understand this now as we're at the beginning stages of proliferating this around the world, so that people of color, marginalized people who are typically from oppressed and marginalized backgrounds are not oppressed and marginalized by these things that we're creating, right? And so I think it's so important for us at this stage to stop and say, hey, this new technology is on the horizon. If we're not careful, we're going to create this technology with the same biases that the individuals have that create them. And so, we work very closely with a number of large organizations. And with those organizations, we are also attempting to help them better understand the future that is coming. And so I think we're really excited to be able to host SICSS on campus. But beyond just hosting SICSS this year, I think we're really excited. I think Mathematica is excited to hopefully do this for a long time to come, right? And to hopefully have a number of these SICSS sessions at Howard and at other HBCUs in the future, so that we can bring in lots of folks that look like us as we study computational social sciences and as we bring a unique lens to the work that will be done at the next level. And so I'm elated again. This is one of those unique things. President Frederick didn't realize that he was giving me this nugget or this carrot by allowing me to carry this forward. There's something that is both personally and professionally really exciting to me. And beyond that, to be clear, I think if we as an institution, and to be clear, if we as SICSS in general, as computational social scientists in general, if we can put a lens on this, if we can put a real focus on this today, hopefully my 1 and 3-year-old will not have to deal with the negative impacts or the negative effects of it tomorrow.
Yes. What you mentioned about the fantastic faculty member at Howard who recently won a very large grant. I am now thinking in my head of a way of incorporating her into this work. I just had a spark, which we'll have to talk about offline. But I'm already excited about the people we have gotten confirmations from, who are all of our amazing speakers. And I'm thinking of a way that maybe we might be able to bring her in as one of our speakers also. So I'm excited to talk to you about that. So can you tell me about how you think computational social science might link itself to your own research at some point? I know you're in the early stages of your work, or if there is like an ideal data set out there that you'd love to get your hands on that you think could be helpful in your work, what that might look like, in case someone is listening out there who might be able to be a fairy godmother or godfather and give you the ideal data set.
Wow, yeah. Listen, you asking some heavy questions here, man. These are some thinkers. An ideal data set, as my advisor literally just spoke to me about data sets yesterday. Um, Man, that's a heavy one. This is not fair. I don't know. I didn't expect to use this part of my brain today. Well, how deep do we want to go here?
Ooh, we can go as deep. Go. This is go for it.
Well, one of the things that we're deciding right now is the methodological approach, right? And so, you know, some of that imposter syndrome is creeping. I'm thinking, if I say this aloud, am I far enough along? Are they going to laugh at me because I'm not far
If
enough
it makes
along?
you feel better, as I'm asking the question, I'm like, should I ask this question? Would I be able to answer that question? I'm not sure I'd be able to answer that question, which makes me happy that I'm on this side of the table.
But it's a good question. It really is a good question. So right now, I'm really toying with the type of data, and I'll answer this in a way that I think you can probably relate to.
Okay.
And this is a little bit telling as you are at this stage, right? So the reality is that I would love to dive, because as you understand my topic, as you see my emotion, I would love to dive into some sort of in-depth interviews, right? Now, to be clear, right, I know, first of all, IRB, there are a number of things, right? There are a number of things that scare me, even about thinking about in-depth interviews, right? So, first of all, is that I want to get out of here, right? That's the first thing that goes through my mind is, can I create a process that would allow me to do this, to get the data, to analyze the data, to get the IRB approvals, all of this stuff.
To graduate, because that is the goal.
But sincerely, I mean that is so literally right now, that is what I'm having a conversation. Do we do in-depth interviews, or are we talking about some content analysis here? And I think there are a number of ways that we can approach it. The reality is that my passion, I think everything is pushing me toward the interviews, but we're wrapping our minds around what that means. I do have one faculty member that is definitely pushing me toward the contextual analysis, unapologetically, I should say. So I don't know. That the reality is that I those are the decisions that are literally. I have an assignment that is due next Thursday, that is going to help me figure this out. I'm in the stage right now that this thing could literally go one direction 100 miles per hour, or it could go another direction 100 miles per hour.
Or it could, or more likely, it could go in both.
Yeah, or it could go in both.
There's such amazing texture you can get from in-depth interviews, and I'm excited. I remember that stage. I mean, I'm acting like I'm outside of that stage. I feel like we keep it's like rinse repeat. What am I gonna do here? How do I do it? Is that make sense how I'm trying to do it? So I'm excited to see where you go. I'm also excited to see what complementary things come out of both of our experiences with SICSS-Howard Mathematica this summer. So
Absolutely.
do you have any advice you'd offer to others considering a doctorate as we finish up? And then my last question, is there anything else you wish I'd asked you that I hadn't asked you?
America is a unique space as it pertains to higher education and education in general, right? I think that so many of us are, and as I say this, I hope I don't get in trouble, as a higher education administrator, I think so much of our system is really created to make good workers, right? And so even as I talk about my degree not being tied directly to a profession, it always feels weird. I was in a group full of students and scholars the other day, and the president asked that, and it felt so weird saying that, And so the thing that I guess the thing that I would suggest is that folks start to understand their worlds outside of the solely educational context. And I know that's unique because you asked me, what about the utility of the degree? I think for me, the only way that I was able to actually come to this, to the pursuit of this doctorate, is by understanding that in order for me to be the best version of myself, this information is needed. And so that's unique because I'm so mission driven, I'm so passion driven, right? That all of those things align. And so it says further this in order to further that. But I think for me, I would encourage more people to view the world through that lens, right? I think that so many of us, and again, it's based on privilege, right? And I want to acknowledge that on the front end, right? This is completely privilege driven. But I think so many of us identify, are utilize, are understand education for its utility, right? For its direct utility. How will I use this degree? What would this degree do for me? Instead of understanding, I think, what the education itself does beyond the degree. And so right now, our president very often talks about what is your mission and not your major. Now that's more specific for an undergraduate student, right? It's a little bit different at the doctoral level. But I would encourage people, even at the doctoral level, to better understand not necessarily the professional utility of the degree. And again, I say that from a place of privilege. And so even as I say that, I'm a little cautious. But I would encourage I guess more of the self-exploration, right? And I know all topics don't lend themselves to that. And I guess I'll speak specifically to Black men for a moment, right? I think the reality is that there's a very small percentage of Black folks, but specifically Black men that have doctorate degrees, right? And I think for Black men, young Black men, people that are thinking about pursuing this potentially, I would say understand how this education might impact you. The thing that I'm doing right now helps me become a better father. It helps me become a better husband. It helps me become a better senior advisor. It helps me become a better student. And so by doing this real work, you saw the emotion, right? This is, I'm in therapy as I'm going through this stuff, as I'm learning about this stuff. But the reality is that the reason I'm doing this is because I have to guide my Black boys that are coming after me and my homeboys that are coming after me, right? And the people to the left and the right of me and the people above me. And so for so many, I think, we've got to understand, we got to define ourselves, right? We have to, and as I say, God, I hope I don't get in trouble. We have to define ourselves, right? I think outside of that lens, right? I think that is there to define us, for us. And so I know you didn't ask me anything specific about Black men, but I think that if I had a big microphone and there was a big crowd of folks, I would say, hey, Black men, step up to this plate right here. There's a lot of power in this space. And I think there's also a lot of flexibility and mobility and a lot of things that we probably haven't been exposed to. And so I'm really excited as I think about computational social science in my world, as I think about computational social science at Howard, as I think about SICSS, as I think about the future of data science and AI. I think hopefully this is the first HBC, the first SICSS at a HBCU. This is the first SICSS under this theme, but hopefully next year there are many more at HBCUs. Next year there are many more from this theme, and hopefully we can continue to grow and build on this footprint. And to be clear, I want to give you a big shout out because even before there was an HBCU program, there were folks like you that said, hey, I didn't graduate from an HBCU, but we need this voice here. If this voice is missing from the table, we're doing ourselves all a disservice. And so thank you for your voice. Thank Matt and the team at SICSS. Thanks, Akira. The reality is I think that we're onto something big here. I think that we have the ability, as we look at the young person that wants to go into computational social science, right, that says, I can now go to a Howard University or I can now pursue a doctorate degree because I can have that type of impact on the world. And so, so much of the work that we do here is aspirational. So much of the work that we do here is this pie in the sky, moonshot type of stuff. But I think that is the type of work that we get a chance to think about. And hopefully that's the type of the stuff that we are on the precipice of doing here with SICSS.
And so as we close, I think the best compliment I can give is that I can't wait to show this to my brother. I'm very excited. I've been encouraging my brother to think about getting a doctorate, and I'm very excited to show him this video, and I'm excited for a lot of people to see this. So I want to thank you, Calvin, for joining us. I want to thank our audience for watching. I'd like to remind you to take a look at our website, to follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, email us if we can be helpful in your application process ahead of our upcoming deadline, or down the road if you're thinking about applying to the Howard Mathematica site, or if we're a few years down the road, many of the other sites at other HBCUs. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much for your time, and we hope to see you for another video again soon.
Thank you.